In a small seaside village, two brothers, Tom and Jack, lived a simple life with their mother. Tom, the elder brother, was thoughtful and cautious. Jack, younger by 2 years, was bold and adventurous. They often explored the rocky cliffs by the sea, but there was one place they had never dared to enter, the Old Lighthouse. For as long as they could remember, the lighthouse had stood abandoned, its tall structure looming over the cliffs. The villagers said it was haunted, that strange sounds echoed from within at night, and that no one who entered had ever returned. Naturally, Tom was skeptical, but Jack couldn't resist the mystery. One evening, while the brothers were out fishing, they noticed something unusual. A faint light flickered at the top of the old lighthouse. Jack, his eyes wide with excitement, nudged Tom and pointed. "Did you see that? Someone's in there." Tom shook his head, wary. "Probably just a trick of the light, Jack. You know the stories. But what if it's more?" Jack pressed. "What if someone really is in there? We have to check it out." Against his better judgment, Tom agreed to accompany his brother. They decided to go that night, bringing flashlights and a small bag of tools, just in case they needed to pry open any old doors. Their mother was out working late, so they left a note for her and set off toward the lighthouse. As they neared the old structure, the wind howled and the waves crashed against the cliffs, creating an eerie symphony. The air felt cold and damp, and Tom's nerves prickled with unease. Jack, however, seemed unbothered, his steps quick and light as they approached the towering entrance. The heavy wooden door was slightly ajar, its hinges creaking as they nudged it open. Inside, the air was thick and musty, and a spiral staircase wound its way up the lighthouse's core, disappearing into darkness. Tom hesitated. "Are you sure about this?" Jack grinned, though his voice was a bit shaky. "We've come this far. Let's see what's at the top." Slowly, they began their ascent, their flashlights casting narrow beams across the walls. The stairs creaked under their weight, and every so often, they would hear a soft rustling sound, as if something was moving just out of sight. Tom's heart pounded with each step, and even Jack grew quieter as they climbed higher. About halfway up, they heard it, a faint, rhythmic tapping. It sounded almost like footsteps, echoing through the walls of the lighthouse. The brothers froze, exchanging nervous glances. "Do you think someone's up there?" whispered Tom. Jack nodded, his eyes wide with anticipation. Only one way to find out. They continued up, the tapping growing louder as they climbed. At last, they reached a small wooden door that led to the top. Jack pushed it open, and they stepped into the lantern room. But instead of finding someone waiting for them, they found a dusty, abandoned room with broken glass, old ropes, and a worn-out lantern. "Strange," murmured Tom, shining his flashlight around. "Where did the tapping come from?" Just then, the door behind them slammed shut. Both brothers jumped, spinning around in shock. The door was locked tight, and no amount of pushing or pulling would budge it. "Who locked us in here?" Jack's voice trembled as he pounded on the door. Suddenly, a voice whispered from the shadows. "You shouldn't have come here." The brothers turned, their flashlights darting around the room, but saw no one. The voice sounded faint and hollow, as if it came from all around them. "Who's there?" Tom called out, trying to steady his voice. Silence followed, then the tapping resumed, louder this time. The brothers' flashlights flickered, and a cold wind swept through the room, even though there were no windows open. Tom's skin crawled as he felt something brush past him, cold as ice. "Let's get out of here!" Jack cried, grabbing Tom's arm. But before they could move, the floor beneath them shifted, and a trapdoor opened. They tumbled down, landing in a hidden chamber beneath the lighthouse. It was dark, damp, and filled with strange, old equipment. On one wall, they saw a collection of maps and old photographs. Tom picked one up, examining it closely. It showed two men standing in front of the lighthouse, each holding an identical lantern. On the back was written, "The keepers of the light, bound to the lighthouse forever." "These must be the original keepers," Tom whispered. Maybe their spirits are still here." Jack gulped. "Let's find a way out, Tom. I don't want to meet any ghosts." As they moved through the chamber, they found an old journal. Tom opened it and read aloud. The entries were written in a neat, old-fashioned script and described the life of the keepers, their duties, and their secrets. The last entry read, "We are bound to this lighthouse, to protect its secrets for as long as it stands. Anyone who enters will face our wrath, for no one must uncover what lies beneath." Just as Tom finished reading, they heard footsteps coming down the stairs toward the chamber. The brothers panicked, their flashlights flickering as they scrambled to find a hiding place. They ducked behind a stack of crates, peeking out as two shadowy figures entered the room. The figures were faint and transparent, dressed in the same uniforms as the men in the photographs. They moved slowly, their expressions stern and unyielding as they inspected the room. One of them turned, and Tom could feel its gaze pass over him, cold and unsettling. After a few tense moments, the figures moved on, disappearing through a wall. The brothers let out sighs of relief, trembling with fear. "We need to get out of here, Jack," Tom whispered urgently. "But we have to be careful." They crept toward the trapdoor they had fallen through and climbed back up to the lantern room. The door was still locked, but Jack spotted a rusty key hanging on the wall. He grabbed it, and after a few tries, managed to unlock the door. They rushed down the staircase, not daring to look back. When they reached the bottom, they ran out of the lighthouse, gasping for breath as they emerged into the night air. The village lights shone in the distance, a comforting sight after the terrifying ordeal. As they walked back home, Tom and Jack spoke little, each lost in thought. They had survived the lighthouse, but they could still feel the cold touch of the spirits, hear the faint tapping echoing in their minds. When they finally reached home, their mother was waiting for them, worry etched on her face. They tried to explain what had happened, but their words seemed to fail, as if the nightmarish experience couldn't be fully expressed. From that day on, the brothers never returned to the old lighthouse. They carried the secret of the keepers with them, and whenever they passed by the cliffs, they could swear they saw faint figures standing at the top, watching over the sea, bound to their lighthouse forever.